Good afternoon. My name is Colonel Todd Moore, the 21st Space Wing Commander at Peterson Air Force Base. I personally thank you for attending today's update to discuss the Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation and Liability Act process, also known as CERCLA, in regard to the perfluorooctane sulfonate and perfluorooctanic acid, PFOS, PFOA, and site inspection report. This is a very important issue within Peterson Air Force Base and our community in which we live, work, and raise our families. I took command just 2 weeks ago and already realize PFOS and PFOA is the most highly visible and concerning issue affecting our community today. This is my community now, and as a resident of El Paso County, my team and I take environmental concerns very seriously. We have nearly 11,000 Team Pete employees who live here, enlisted, officers, civilians, contractors, some of whom live in the affected areas. We are fully invested in working with the Air Force Civil Engineer Center and with local, state, and federal agencies to help in the CERCLA process until it's resolved. With that said, I would like to update you on the actions Peterson Air Force Base has taken to mitigate any further contamination. Since this issue has come to light, Peterson Air Force Base has taken several steps to appropriately minimize the risk of having PFOS and PFOA enter our environment. First, to prevent PFOS, PFOA, and PFOA from entering the environment, we have completely replaced the legacy aqueous film-forming foam, also known as AFFF, in our emergency response vehicles with a new synthetic foam. The DoD has worked with the EPA to create an appropriate solution that will still allow us to fight liquid fuel fires and provide unparalleled safety to our Colorado Springs Municipal Airport commercial flight operations and our military aircraft. This new foam will be used in emergency response situations for any civilian or military aircraft response at the airport, in accordance with our mutual aid agreement. As of today, a Defense Logistics Agency contractor has picked up approximately 6,000 gallons of legacy AFFF waste and sent it off to be properly disposed in an approved destruction facility. Secondly, we will continue to work with the Air Force Civil Engineer Center to develop a plan to replace legacy AFFF in our aircraft hangar fire suppression systems. Until then, any activation of the system will be contained within an underground hangar water vault, and any foam released outside of that drain system will be treated like a hazardous material spill and remediated appropriately. Third, the Air Force Civil Engineer Center sampled 23 groundwater monitoring wells on or around Peterson Air Force Base and property within the airport's boundaries. The data within these monitoring wells is part of the Air Force Civil Engineer Center site inspection report that is available now on the AFCEC and Peterson websites. This initial site inspection was accelerated and completed 1 month before it was originally scheduled to start next month. Fourth, the installation has created processes to prevent any inadvertent release of water containing excessive PFOS, PFOA into the sanitary sewer, including physically locking valves to prevent any contamination from being processed through Colorado Springs utilities or ending up in Fountain Creek. Allegedly, 80% of the aquifer's discharge comes from Fountain Creek's surface water, so we want to ensure that we are not contributing to an issue through an inadvertent discharge of contaminated water. Fifth, the Air Force's $4.3 million is being used as a good neighbor to provide alternate drinking water sources and inline treatment for local public and private water systems impacted above the EPA health advisory for PFOS or PFOA. In addition to the bottled water being provided at 90 locations south of Peterson Air Force Base, 26 homes on private water wells received under-the-sink reverse osmosis filtration units. 2 locations received low-flow granular activated carbon, or GAC, treatment systems. 1 location received a tap into the city water supply. 1 mobile home park has received filtration, and another is scheduled to have a system installed at the end of next month. The city of Fountain received 1 500-gallon per minute GAC unit and will receive a second next month. The Air Force is actively working with Widefield and security communities to create the best solutions. Finally, we have worked closely with water purveyors, trailer home parks, individual residents, members of El Paso County Health, Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, and other agencies to ensure that we are acting prudently and appropriately. Additionally, we will work any future challenges with each organization. Our role is to support the guidance and policies sent down from the Air Force Civil Engineer Center and the Secretary of the Air Force for Installations and Environment. And with everyone's clear communication, we should be able to help the people of our community. We live and work in El Paso County, and we will continue to build and strengthen our relationships with the place we call home while continuing to be transparent. As the commander of the 21st Space Wing and the host commander at Peterson Air Force Base, I take this issue seriously and pledge my team's continued cooperation in the CERCLA process with the area's key stakeholders and elected leaders. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Cornell Long. I am the PFOS PFOA team lead for the Air Force Civil Engineer Center, and as Colonel Moore mentioned, today I'll be sharing the results of the initial PFOS PFOA investigation at Peterson Air Force Base with you. This process began in spring of 2016 when we first conducted a preliminary assessment, and during that preliminary assessment we identified 7 potential release areas of AFFF that required further study. Working with the state of Colorado, CDPHE, and their staff, we developed a work plan and optimized the strategy for sampling and analysis of what we combined into 5 locations at that time. This work plan was completed in fall of last year, and we completed the field work in November of 2016. Today, we're releasing the report that shows our findings, and I guess what I'd like to do, if you'd allow me, I'd like to go up to the board and describe some of these findings. So the purpose of this map is to portray the findings that we have reported in the SI report. 2 main features. You'll see a series of dots up here on Peterson Air Force Base, green and yellow, and what those dots depict is anything that's in yellow is above EPA's Lifetime Health Advisory in groundwater. If it's green, it's below the Lifetime Health Advisory. So you can see a series of dots leading from the northwest to the southeast that show yellow dots that describe concentrations above EPA's Lifetime Health Advisory in groundwater. 3 locations will be carried forward for additional work, as well as a location over here where soil concentrations were found slightly above a reference concentration. One of the things that we've learned in our study at Peterson Air Force Base is that we have a less than perfect understanding about how groundwater moves at the installation. So what you'll see is this blue overlay. And what that depicts is preferential groundwater pathways, also called paleo channels. So what we need to do is go out and investigate further these paleo channels and understand, because we don't have a good understanding of how contamination that might occur in groundwater on the base actually moves off and how it might impact drinking water off the installation. And so our next step is an expanded site inspection. We just received approval and funding for this study last week from the Secretariat's Office, Financial Management, and we'll be working with the state and the Corps of Engineers to implement that work in the fall timeframe. This is the next step in a series of steps that demonstrate our commitment to the Peterson Air Force Base community, and following this expanded site inspection, we'll then commit to a full-blown remedial investigation, which is a robust study that looks at nature and extent of the contamination as well as assesses risk. And we hope to have that funding procured by the fall of 2018. Thank you.